we are constantly being fed these archetypes of like, what is attractive? What is a man? What is an alpha man? What is a successful man? What's a successful woman? What's a successful marriage? What's a successful business? What's a successful career? What do you dress like? What's your watch like? We're being fed this because of capitalism to buy this, to buy a BBL, to buy the watch, to do all these things. And there was a time where like maybe you saw one bad bitch your whole life. Like, cause she just happened to pass through. Right? And you just remembered her. Like there was not this paralyzation of options that you think you have or access that you think you have. And like,
I guess it depends on where you lived.
Sure, but a lot of people. If you
was like in Ethiopia, it was just a civilization of them.
Sure. But maybe you lived in a small village and you didn't leave. Okay?
No, if you heard about them, you going. You going.
But like
you about to scroll through.
You didn't have IG in your village. So like you maybe just had to believe that these women
they would tell stories.
It was like the sun. Right.
That's why men started traveling in the first place.
The point is the idea of masculinity, I think, is framed in all these really weird ways. And to your point, a true like masculine man had all of these different elements.
Yeah, he was complex.
He was a complex person and respected for that. And you had to earn it. You had to earn that respect. It was earned. And this idea that you can just peck away on, your computer and talk shit to people and then like buy this fine ass OnlyFans pussy and then walk out in the world and be like, I'm an alpha man. Like, no, you were never getting none of this. You were never the warrior. And there was a time where if you weren't the warrior, if you walked into the chief's, crib and was like, I want your virgin daughter, they would behead you for even having the audacity. Like you didn't earn it. And there's a lot of things that aren't earned, like ass, sometimes you have to get a BBL. You can't do the squats to get it. But everything can kind of be purchased and positioned. And because of that, it's really hard for people to define themselves without those things if they don't have them.
Yeah. There was a time, like, first of all, the conversation shifted to like alpha, beta, right? And there was never just two type of men, right? There's like the sigma as well, where he could be like the lonely, you feel me, that don't need to be the one that's in front of the crowd, but also respected, right? And formidable and not to be challenged, right? It's kind of like the archetype of Wolverine, right? There's certain like characters and cartoons we like because those archetypes resonate with us. It has nothing to do with his powers. It has everything to do with him. You can be a part of the group, but then go on your own when you want to, right? You'll listen when you need to, but you always have your own mind. And anytime this thing goes against my values, I'm going my own way. You feel me? And so you never needed to actually be the one that was the leader, but you was respected equally. Right? That's an archetype that men can see themselves in to where it creates more harmony in society. But the alpha means you always have to challenge. You always have to fight, right? It creates this primate council of men. Instead of ones that counseling within each other, or when things go too toxic, you just leave and go your own way.
Right. Everyone's not going to be an alpha.
Right. You don't need to be. You know what I mean? I think that you can switch from, and again, there's these complexities that exist. We act like at one moment you alpha forever. It's not true. Sometimes you might be beta in a situation, but more so that's just humility. Maybe you want to learn from somebody else. And so what it did is restricted men from being able to flow. Right? So in this situation, maybe I just want to be a helper. Maybe I want to assist. Maybe I want to take orders. I think this is a good general for this situation. I don't want to have to lead all the time, but that doesn't make me less of a man. It makes me more because I know myself and what to do in every situation, right? That's when men can move with flow, but that's when you have wisdoms and elders. Again, I think Hollywood and media did so much to destroy what masculinity and femininity was. Right? They wanted to sell women cigarettes, so they connected it to social movements, right? And we let so much of propagandists, right, and social scientists decide who we are. And we really invested into ideas that they created and sold us. And now we're trying to figure out why we're not getting along, because they socially engineered who we are. And these things were never to flow together. It was always to sell a product. So now we're trying to get back to our original self. Right? And that original self is something we're going to find. It happens because life is existing in cycles, right? We're thinking we're so far ahead. We're just in a cycle. That's all. Well, we lose ourselves and refine ourselves. And in that refining, we go through that level of, okay, this is why I always had these thoughts, but we didn't talk about it, so therefore it never became mainstream. Thing doesn't have to, this idea of balance, again, I don't believe in it. I believe in like, when something becomes the dominant in society, it may be 60%, 55, 70. It's like every rapper don't needs to be Talib Kweli or Common, but it does need to dominate. So therefore, it becomes the culture normative instead of these outliers. We don't need Kendrick Lamar as an outlier. We need that to be the baseline, right? And so when we get somebody else that's negative, that's the outlier. You understand me? And so
life imitates art.
But see, art should strategically, I think, push aspiration, right? There goes the famous interview with Larry Cohen on Breakfast Club telling them that the Run DMC was selling. They was working at a time. But he said they were aspirational. So he'd rather get drug dealers because that was easier to sell, right? Criminality was easier to sell because lower forms of things like selling candy versus selling some mushroom coffee, right? Or a shot of liquor versus, hey, stimulating, clear your mind, right? We tend to be easily distracted and go into a negative direction, but typically when we're feeling low. Mm-hmm. And then we get addicted to those things. So aspiration, meaning becoming more. People stop wanting to become more, right? And then that took over design of all society, right? We live in a less colorful world, right? We live in a world where it's not as fanciful anymore. There's a brutalism, a minimalism, and everything now. People are not seeking God no more. You go to a church, it used to be this beautiful mausoleum with sacred geometry everywhere because it was trying to connect to this sense of self, this divineness, this sublimeness. And that disappeared, right? So again, we've been thrown into check boxes and we're trying to figure out how to fit in these boxes. And I live as if the box don't exist.
Maybe you can save us, Keys.
Gotta say yourself.